evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is that Fandom Show for the second time in one day. Thanks, Halloween. We are reviewing Star Wars Ahsoka. Episode 7 is in the book. It's crazy to think that we started this journey 6 weeks ago, and there's only 1 week left. And the truth is, in terms of getting a continuation of this story, it's going to be a bit of a wait. We believe the plan. Pardon me. We believe the plan is for them to do a second season of Ahsoka prior to the Filoni movie, and one would think that other series that are happening in this time are going to at least loosely continue this story now moving forward. Joining me tonight are the fellas that saved my bacon last week when I couldn't so much as sit upright. First up, he is the man behind Bros Before Pros Gaming. It's Johnny. What's going on, man?
How you doing? I'm doing good. You know, it's a great episode tonight. I'm excited.
Do I sound okay now? Am I good?
Still a little low to me, but I don't know if that's a my end issue or something.
Randy, do I sound okay to you?
You do sound better now.
All right. It's hard to again. I've been sick for a while. Those that are watching, I can't hear out of this ear right now. Like I got like 5% hearing. It's just part of the sickness. So it's kind of hard for me to tell how loud I'm being. But also joining us is Randy. Dude, the penultimate episode is in the books. I can't wait to dive into this with you. And Randy's also been diving into Jedi Survivor as well, man. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, I finally got my hands on it. Been playing it a fair amount. I think I'm about 5 or 6 hours in, but I'm also that guy that likes to explore and find every little thing. So I'm not even really that far into the story, but I'm far enough that I'm getting new lore that I think is just absolutely fascinating, that I just can't wait to dive more into it.
Yeah, that's something that we're definitely going to be able to talk about on this channel moving forward too. So I'm looking forward to that. So episode 7 is in the books, and I'll start off easy. I'll lob you guys a softball. What did you guys, non-spoiler thoughts for now, what did you guys think of the episode, Johnny?
I enjoyed it. You know, it kept pace with where I wanted. Like the story is still. I have more questions than answers, which are different questions than the questions I had after last week's episode, which is an amazing thing. I loved most of the interactions between characters. There are a few I'll nitpick later when we get into spoilers and into the nitty gritty, but overall I enjoyed it. You know, it was maybe a tiny bit shorter than I would have liked for a penultimate episode, but you know, it was better than other efforts in the Disney Plus era, so you know, I can't really complain about that. But I'm excited. I'm enjoying it. I mean, that's the most important thing, is I'm genuinely enjoying it.
Does anybody else hear anything?
Someone I hear us.
TV going on? I don't know. My hearing is effed, so forgive me. Randy, what were your thoughts on the penultimate episode?
I mean, I have so many questions. I'm just like going, wait a second, what's going to happen here? What's going to happen here? What's going to happen here? I'm like, there's all these little seeds planted that can go in so many different directions, and I absolutely love it. I really was into this episode. I had moments of, you know, dread in certain situations. There was just like these little thoughts going in my head going, oh, don't you dare do this. But ultimately, just overall, it was a great episode, a great way to lead into what is probably going to be one of the more insane season finales we're going to see in a while.
It's going to be bittersweet because great things require patience, and it's going to be a long while before we see any sort of direct continuation from this story. Like we're talking years, like you're not going to see an Ahsoka season 2. My guess is at the very earliest sometime during 2025. And I know that seems like a long time from now, but that's just kind of where things are, and we'll see what ends up happening. I guess off the top, I don't want to spend all episode just talking about this one particular thing and letting my Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon fandom take over the show. But this episode was directed by Geeta Patel, who directed, I don't know if she did 1 or 2 episodes on House of the Dragon. I don't know if you can search that up, Johnny. But I know the one episode she definitely did was, I think it was episode 4, but regardless, it's the episode of House of the Dragon where Daemon and Rhaenyra sneak out the hidden passage, and they go out on the town basically for the night, and it's a very character driven, visually appealing, emotional episode. And I gotta tell you, I thought a lot of that rang true for this one. Like, I know people like to tie their wagon, pun intended, to directors when they have a good episode or two of something, and then they want to just give them everything. But I got to tell you guys, I thought the direction in this episode, in almost every scene, was just phenomenal. Like, she's very clearly very, very talented, and I'm glad that they brought her on, and I thought she nailed it. And I thought that the character interactions, as Johnny said, I'm curious to see which one he didn't get a kick out of. But the character interactions in this episode, I thought, were just banging, absolutely banging. Loved it. Okay, so let's dive into it. The episode begins with the why don't we just dive into this New Republic scene that we get? How did we all feel about that scene? Randy, I'll start with you.
Well, I mean, we knew we needed to see something that had to deal with, Hera's actions. I like the fact that it ended up being Leia who basically bailed her out. But it really gives you an idea of just like, I don't like the New Republic. I don't like the fact that they're either too afraid or too ignorant or just too stupid to really believe that Thrawn could be a threat. It's like I understand you don't want it to be true, and I know you're afraid it's going to be true, but given Hera's track record, the fact that what she's done for the Rebel Alliance, leading all the way through to the Empire's fall, and you still don't give her the benefit of the doubt, and you're willing to strip her of her command, essentially, it's like, yeah, I kind of don't care what happens to the New Republic at this point. And I can see why we have the resistance in the sequel trilogy now, because of bureaucratic BS that we got to see in this episode.
Johnny, what was your take on the I guess, I don't know if I want to call it Senate hearing, but the just the New Republic scene where once again it really appears that they're pretty incompetent?
I mean, it was attack on cold open, and it was a good enough scene. Like, I don't have any problem with it, and it was nice getting that sort of fan service and seeing all the cameos, which were sort of oh, hey, that's that guy, or that's that person. I mean, obviously assuming that was Nien Nunb and Admiral Akbar in the chamber is presumably who those people were. Of course, it was great seeing 3PO again. I got a great enjoyment out of that. When you sort of hear him, I heard the movement before I heard the voice. I was like, oh, it's 3PO. And then you see him and, that moment. And, it was fun. I didn't have any issues with that scene other than it took time away from everything else that was important in the scene. They sort of already reaffirmed how incompetent they are as the, sort of the ruling Senate now, that they're not willing to engage on the possibility. Like, I understand sort of brushing off Thrawn because it's not a real threat to them. You know, he's not present. He's not in the galaxy. He's not there. You know, and I can certainly understand thinking, well, he's been gone this long, he's dead. He's in another galaxy. He's not coming back. There's no, you know, like let's not make more issues than what we're dealing with. It is more the complete scoffing off of the Imperial remnant when not, you know, during the course of this series, we literally saw the shipyards of Corellia completely corrupted by the Imperial remnant. Like, let's not pretend that that wasn't an important thing to, you know, the galactic cohesion as far as the Senate goes. Like, if you can literally take over the Corellian shipyards, which are, I believe, still the most important shipyard in all of the galaxy, like in all of the Republic, like, really, we're just going to pretend that wasn't an issue? Like, you know, I can forgive them writing off Thrawn. I can't forgive them writing off the Imperial remnant, because that is a real threat. That is legitimate. And if they could get the shipyards of Corellia, where else are they? You know, like that's real. That's sort of where I'm at with that. Like, it was fan service. It was fun. I enjoyed it. You know, I liked the throw to Leia. You know, I liked hearing what her position is in the Senate, because I don't think we knew that at any point, what her actual, you know, we know she's a senator, but we didn't know, you know, that she's the, you know, head of defense, which makes
not
perfect
visual
sense to
media
me.
anyway.
I didn't know if we had it in a book or not that confirmed her title as that. So, okay, so we did know that, but it was nice seeing it in, you know, in live action. So I enjoyed all that. You know, I loved seeing 3PO. I wouldn't have hated an R2 appearance, because, you know, anytime R2 and Chopper can play around in the background is a fun experience for me, you know. But then again, I think R2 and Chopper in the same place would have killed that senator after that comment he made. So, you know, 3PO, you could deal with that comment, but R2 and Chopper, no, he's getting burned. His robes are getting lit on fire. It was fun, but it was unnecessary. It was longer than it needed to be for the whole, I guess. You know, it was like a 5-6. You know, it was almost 1/5 of the episode. You know, and that is just a little much for something so relatively insane. It could have been so much shorter.
What did it clock in at? Anyways, minus credits. I'm guessing about 39
the episode
minutes.
clocked in at 37 minutes and 23 seconds.
Yeah, that was a long, cold open. There's no doubt about that. You know it. But if I had to guess, that's the last time we're seeing Hera Chopper in season 1. I could be wrong, but it felt like that was a nice little bow on. Okay, this is where they're at this point. Now it's time to go back here. Randy, what did you think of everything they had there? And did you think at all it was jarring that just 3PO showed up and Leia wasn't there?
I mean, it in a way, it seems to make sense. Maybe there was, when you think about it, maybe she just had other pressing matters she was attending to at the time, or, you know, maybe she was off with R2, you know, maybe getting to the point where we're starting to recruit for the Resistance, because maybe she's fed up with this as much as we are seeing it, because clearly that's exactly like the feeling I get just seeing, going, come on, really, these guys again? And that's kind of, and I'm sure she's got to be at that point herself. So I will say,
with Luke at this point,
very true. Yes, that as well. I will say I did like the little callback to Gideon and the Siege of Mandalore with him, and I'm like, and there's like, oh, he's just a warlord. It's like, clearly you don't trust your own intel there on exactly what Moff Gideon is, but okay, whatever. So I don't know.
I liked that nugget being included because it gave us an idea where we are in the timeline. Now you definitively know that Ahsoka and Luke have already met. Where they fit it in, no idea. But they've already met. We are post Mandalorian season 3 at this point.
Which does make sense. It does add credence to the Grogu feeling Ahsoka and the space whale thing that's been going around.
Yeah. I don't think we're a ton further than it in terms of
No.
what's going on.
Right.
But like we have an idea at least where we're sitting now. I appreciated the scene for what it was. Honestly, it kind of felt like a scene pulled right out of not necessarily Heir to the Empire, but that old trilogy. And when they go back to the council, and Mon Mothma's involved and Leia's involved, and eventually I believe it's General Bel Isbis, or I screwing up the name there, is involved, and we get the whole Dark Force Rising bit, which I think there's been some nods to that too throughout these episodes. I will say this though, in the grand scheme of things, it feels like, and I'm assuming they have a plan for it, and I really hope it's not just CG. It feels like Dave Filoni is painting himself into a corner with his movie in terms of the big three, or at least two of the big three, are going to have to be involved on some level here in terms of the actual film. Like, I think that we're getting to a point where it's almost unavoidable between Luke and Leia anyway.
It would be very difficult to not have them involved in some form or fashion. Can they work around it? Yes, I suppose. Specifically with Luke, if he's off building his, depending on how things line up, if he's off building his, his new Jedi order, as it were, and, off training, whatever, dealing with, if this is around the time, I don't know how this plays in with the timelines as far as things we know, but, if he's off like collecting his Sith trinkets, like we see him in Battlefront 2, when he runs into them there, if he's off, on his trinket hunt at this point, it could be that's sort of how you get past the Luke. But I think you're really painting yourself into a corner with Leia, especially, with acknowledging her position in the Senate as far as defense. And could they not necessarily work around it, but are there ways to deal with it in a sense of, obviously not having Carrie with us anymore? Yes, obviously, you could use her in a hollow, where you don't have to, deal with things like full CG changing, like this technology we used in Rogue One, to get Carrie in there. You don't necessarily have to do that, but you could, obviously Billy's a part of this, franchise as a whole and the family. So could you use that technology again? Sure. But I don't necessarily know if I want them to.
Right.
But it also sort of runs smack into abilities now with the, settling of the strike forthcoming, and how that will play into what they are capable of doing from a, technology of, recreating voices and voice acting and things like that. So it definitely is sort of a looming cloud hanging over their abilities. But obviously, I'm sure there will be outs that, families can, or likeness owners, whether they're foundations or corporations or families or whoever owns, likeness and rights and such like that. It just sort of runs into video game territory at that point, which I don't have an issue with, as long as it's, fundamentally sound on both sides.
I'm gonna be a little blunt here with this. It's time for Lucasfilm to step up and have some, for the lack of a better term, balls. Carrie Fisher would have wanted somebody else to play Leia. Whether that's her daughter or not, who knows? Mark Hamill has already been on the record saying he wants someone else to play Luke Skywalker. And Harrison Ford just doesn't fucking give a shit.
He's like, I'm dead. We're good.
Yeah.
I got what I wanted 40 years ago. I'm fine.
What's that? Another 15 million? Yeah, I guess I can show up on set for a few days. No, it's time to recast people.
It is.
Don't get me wrong. The performers have stood the test of time and will stand the test of time when we are old men. But it's time to allow the characters that they breathed life into to live on and continue to have other stories. And I get it. The idea of recasting Luke Skywalker probably makes them go, oh shit, well, look what happened with Solo. And personally, I think Alden Ehrenreich gets a bad rap for that. I'm not saying he was the perfect choice, but he was serviceable. He didn't take me out of that movie at all. And they don't have to be your focal point. It's going to be this Avengers like ensemble film more than likely. And just recast, please. Do the due diligence. Have a casting call go for a bloody year if you need to. But I don't want to be sitting like a couple of years ago. I probably would have been like, yeah, sure, do the deep fake and all that. But I got to tell you, I want to see real conversations and real character moments like we got in tonight's episode with those characters. I know we're kind of straying off the episode here, but like it does feel like they're setting it up so that these characters are going to have a role to play in more than likely the feature film more than a second season of Ahsoka, I would assume. So I hope they do the right thing because like the last thing I want to see is a deep fake Ray Stevenson too if Balin survives. Like
don't be willing that into existence. No, don't even talk about it.
Well, I'm still firmly on the camp. I don't think he's surviving at all.
You might be right. You might be right. Like there's something going on there that we'll get to in a bit. But yeah, I thought that the cold opening put a wrap to Hera's and really Mon Mothma's part in this show, and I'd be pretty surprised to see them next week. No, you might see them in some like post-credit thing.
I think like at the end, like if this ends with Thrawn returning to the galaxy, you sort of get the ghost facing off against him in an oh shit.
Yeah, I could see that.
Pretty much.
Randy, did you have anything else you wanted to add on that New Republic opening?
Well, not so much that as what you guys were talking about. How many years in between episode 7 and this would you say this is?
I'm glad you brought that up because do you know how many content creators that are on way bigger channels than this that and I heard Johnny make the mistake last week, and that's not on him. You have every Tom, Dick, and Harry out here saying it's been 20 years, it's been 8 years, it's been 7 years, it's 30 years till this. The approximate time from this isn't exactly what you asked, but the approximate time from the end of Rebels to where we are right now in the timeline is 12 years have passed. It's approximately 12 years from the end of Rebels to this episode of Ahsoka, which then makes 24 years between this episode and the beginning of The Force Awakens. So that's your approximate timeline in terms of what's going on, give or take 6 months or a year on each end.
So the easiest way to technically write Leia off is she's off pregnant, getting ready to give birth to Ben. So she's trying to stay safe.
He's already born.
Okay.
Yeah. Aftermath trilogy. Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? It's like that she could be taking care of him, which is why she's not showing up. She's busy with him. But also, like, if it worked for Harry Potter to recast Dumbledore, it can work for Star Wars.
I understand the comparison, but I think that's sort of, I don't want to say apples and oranges, but it kind of is. Because
I'm just saying you could
where
do
it. Where it worked was a different example. This was 2 films into an 8-film saga, so it worked because they went from one to another. But this is more like the Dumbledore recasting for the Fantastic Beasts series, which has been a much more maligned thing.
Wow.
I can't really say much because I play it on my PC all the time.
Okay. 10 years old. By the way, just random thought here. I've only seen Harry Potter through twice ever. And it's just now hitting me that they recast Dumbledore.
How? That's like, he goes from a feeble old man to a not feeble old man.
I guess that's just the difference between a generic viewer who like casually watched it and it wasn't bad. I enjoyed it, but like I don't see myself going back and rewatching the films again. At first, like I'm thinking, wait, are you talking about like the Fantastic Beasts films? But I'm like, no, you're actually talking about the Harry Potter films. It's like, Oh shit! I completely missed that somehow.
I can't with you right now. We need to just move on. Just move on.
But lastly, I was going to say, and if you really did have to do the CG thing for Leia, just get the voice actress who voiced her in Rebels to reprise her role, because she did a really good job.
Yeah.
I would love to see Billy Lord be given an opportunity to at least
That'd be
go and
awesome.
audition for the role, because there's some legacy there. And honestly, by the time the Filoni film's out, let's assume that this film's at earliest Christmas 2026. You're looking at what, 8 years removed from Solo. There's no reason that they might not be able to go back to Alden Ehrenreich. So you might be looking at only having to cast one of them, especially if it's an ensemble film. So Dustin, I want to get his thoughts in here because he put it before we were even live. Another solid episode. A few times I was a little curious to why they went the way they did. We'll explain if spoilers are okay when the stream starts. Yeah, Dustin, but by all means, this is a spoiler review. If you have any
Once
thoughts.
we drop the spoiler warning, go nuts.
Spoiler warning. We're a little late on that, but yeah, no, I think they need to recast it. It's time to grow some and take a chance. That doesn't mean that it's gonna go perfect. It could go horribly bad, and it could get criticized and critiqued from now to the end of time.
Let's be honest, no matter what they do, that's gonna happen. Like, they just need to embrace that and be like, okay, they're gonna hate it no matter what we do, so let's do something.
There's so much story potential they could explore by recasting.
Yeah,
for sure. You're talking possible movies, possible series. There's just so much they can do, and like, it doesn't mean that like Mark Hamill is necessarily done playing Luke Skywalker. He's at an age where you could go do a one-off season of him and Ben Solo in their final year before Ben becomes Kylo, and follow his Jedi in terms of like not live action but animated. There's so many avenues to still have Mark involved with the franchise, and honestly, he's had kind of his career rejuvenated, his live action career rejuvenated since the sequel trilogy, and it is that time. But let's move on, and I want to give some love to Hayden Christensen. He doesn't get much to do in this episode, but I gotta tell you guys, it's just incredibly fulfilling to see a guy who really got shit on by most of the fan base for years to, at least with the material he's been given, knock it out of the park to this point. What did we think of the Ahsoka training sequence and her lining herself up perfectly with Anakin's hologram? Randy?
I thought it was great. I think it showed that, she's finally at peace and ready to just take the next steps. And the fact that she's going back to those old holo recordings that he made specifically for her, if he wasn't around, just showed that, she's ready, to take on a bigger role than she previously held within the galaxy. And I thought that was great.
I mean, I at first honestly thought it was a Force Ghost. That was my initial, because I didn't notice the the projection from the top. I just saw the blue and thought, oh, why? I did not expect that. And then you see it play out, and it's like, oh, it's a holo. Okay, now okay. Once he starts named, like at first, I still wasn't 100% certain from the way he was talking, because for most of the way everything he was saying would sort of apply to the situation now, as well as obviously the past. But then he starts name dropping, Dooku and Grievous, and I loved hearing Asajj's name mentioned in live action. So it's like, oh, okay, well, this is 110% a holo, right up until the end. Because that little interaction right at the very end, again, had me questioning, like, what is this, like, what, huh? Is this both? Is this, what is, like, it was just so awesome that I loved that. I loved those questions, because I love that feeling, that interaction, that playing off of each other. And I loved it, because usually when you get holograms, you don't sort of get that interplay. Yet in this, it felt seamless, in that you could clearly feel Anakin's presence, which presumptively is because he was. But, having them both playing with each other in such a way that it just made everything flow so perfectly, which tied into everything Randy said. And I loved seeing the practicing and the techniques, and I liked the sort of genuine surprise, like Hu Yang didn't know about these, like that Ahsoka sort of kept these, obviously very personal to her, and has kept them secret from Hu Yang, who presumably has been her traveling companion for some time. So I liked that. And at the end, I don't know what it was, but again, this is just me, but there was something very familiar about that box. Like that she put the holo recordings back in. I don't know if it's something we see later on. Like I don't know if it's just sort of like a familiarity to something that I sort of peripherally spotted, like in Luke's cave on Octu, or it's hot, not his cave, or seeing it something. It sparked a feeling of familiarity with me that I don't know why it did.
I'll be honest. I didn't notice a box, so now I'm gonna have to go back and take a look at that box. I wouldn't be surprised to see them pull something like that from there. I really enjoyed what they did. It's a whole 1 minute of screen time for Hayden, but they're really making it work. And I appreciate that. And I like, what's this, the third episode out of 7 that he's been involved in on screen? So like, I don't know if anybody had that on their bingo card coming into the series. Hey, Anakin's going to be in 3 of the 8 episodes. So, and we haven't even gotten to next week, although I wouldn't be surprised if nothing happens there. In terms of Anakin, they kind of got a full deck with what's remaining. I want to address Thrawn just in terms of the entire episode rather than just in a specific act. I have my own thoughts. I'm going to go over to Randy first. Just your thoughts in terms of the character throughout the entire episode and how he was displayed and positioned in this one.
So, with all the different scenes with Thrawn, I was just like, yep. Yeah, I'm sitting there going, there's more to this. There's something he's not revealing, but that's how Thrawn's always been. I loved his reaction when he's like, oh, her master was Anakin Skywalker. And this is kind of like, there was like that, oh shit moment, because he was just like, well, this is not good. But then, of course, he's just like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to let her do her thing. And like Thrawn always does, he's always 3 steps ahead, it seems like, every single time. Even when, even in defeat, he was just like, you know what? I'm good with this. We got exactly what we needed. We got time that we didn't have before. And I love how Morgan's reacting to him like, the hell's wrong with you? We just got pretty much destroyed, and you just call our troops back. It's like, unless you understand how Thrawn works and like how he's always playing chess when other people are playing checkers, you just don't understand half the stuff he does, and yet it always works out for him in some ways, unless there's something he just misses, which is rare. But I overall loved the way he just set everything up, and the use of the Night Sisters, and cool, calm, collected like always, and always seems to have a plan, and that's Thrawn.
Funny.
Oh, for me, this episode boiled down to, that's my Grand Admiral. This was Thrawn at his most Thrawn. Like it was. I've said this phrase many times, but I am about 90% certain that most of those scenes were written by a writer on the phone with Timothy Zahn. You know, like there is no doubt in my mind that either the writing in this episode just 1000% channel that, you know, that Filoni either just full on channeled Timothy Zahn in such a way that it was amazing, or he was actually, you know, present and consulting with the writing 100%. That it was 100%. It was 100% Zahn's Thrawn. Whoa, say that 10 times fast. But you know, it 100% felt like a chapter straight out of Heir to the Empire. You know, like the way he was playing, and you could see him sort of moving the chess pieces internally, and I loved every single second of it. And I loved the interplay of Lars, like, first, because there were definitely points in that where I was like, oh, he's dead? Is he dead? Is this guy dead? Like, is he Night Sister magic now? Like, there were genuinely points where that was a thought that crossed my mind. There's like, no, he's still Thrawn. He's 100%. Like, I love having those questions, you know, and I love that stuff because it genuinely, it was Thrawn playing intergalactic chess, and I loved it because it was every step he made was steps ahead of everyone else, which is Thrawn. Thrawn is always ahead until he loses. That's just the way Thrawn is. You know, when Thrawn gets beaten, it's not usually by being outthought. It's by being, I don't want to say outmaneuvered, but by someone genuinely being a Skywalker and doing something stupid and crazy. That Thrawn's like, no sane person would actually do this. Oh, I'm dealing with Skywalkers. You know, like that's sort of how it plays out. And you sort of get that when he finds out that Ahsoka is Anakin's Padawan, that it's like, oh, expect the unexpected, you know, and he forces her hand and makes her sort of make the steps that he wants, you know, makes her play the game in his way, which is perfectly Thrawn, which will work until it doesn't work. You know, he's always beaten by the insane, the crazy, this shouldn't work, but it does. You know, he's the guy that's beaten by space whales dragging his ship into another galaxy. You know, like, he's not outthought, he's not outflanked. He is genuinely beaten by the Skywalker fuck it maneuver. You know, like, that's always how he loses. And if Thrawn could just fight without fighting against Skywalkers, he would be the Imperial Grand Admiral, Master of the Universe, if that's what he wanted to be.
So I'm going to touch on Zach's comment on screen, but I just want to show this. He most certainly wasn't. Oh, it's not going to show up, is it? He wasn't lying about. It's not going to show up. But he sent me a screenshot of him playing NCAA 14.
The important question is what school?
I don't know. It shows 11 schools. It doesn't say which one he is. So, and then we're right over top. He's got dual screens going. So, shout out to Zach. So now Morgan Elsbeth's character makes a whole lot of sense. She's the Pelion of the.
I don't know if I'd give her that much credit.
The other galaxy. She's the okay. Thrawn is now going to tell you why you are stupid and don't understand what's going on, and show you how to get it done. And that happened multiple times this episode. And you know what? It's like, okay, well now her character's like the only one in the show where I've been kind of like, you're not giving me a whole lot here. And now it's like, oh, okay, this is your purpose. Your purpose is for Thrawn to make you look stupid. Okay, cool.
You're the person that Thrawn is going to do the villainous speeches for. That we're going to be like, oh, that's the plan.
I think the problem with Morgan is she had these expectations of exactly what was going to happen when they finally found Thrawn, and everything that she was expecting from the word go has been just completely tossed out the window, and she's completely lost by it. She just doesn't understand exactly. It's clearly she didn't understand who Thrawn was to begin with. She's just following the orders from the Night Sisters, and that's really about it. It feels like. I will say the reason Thrawn gets beat this episode is because he wasn't expecting Balin to not engage. He was expecting Balin to be in the thick of it because his ultimate plan was to kill them all. So Balin was the wild card for this one.
Yeah, and that's a character we are definitely going to touch on in a bit. I think there's so much to discuss. We were talking about lore off the beginning. Well, I mean, Balin's a character that could probably have his own 60-minute episode at this point, just us talking about him and what could come. I don't know if Thrawn lost though in this episode. Obviously, the two gunships don't succeed in their mission, but Thrawn had mentioned last episode it really doesn't matter to him if they live or die because they're not the priority. And he shows his hand there at the end. It's like, hey, they've basically run out of time, and they're not going to be able to prevent it. And obviously they're going to make an effort, but I think we all know. I mean, Lucasfilm themselves said that the movie is going to have the Imperial Remnant in it, so one typically goes, okay, well, that's Thrawn, and so one would assume, barring some miraculous, change in direction here, that Thrawn is likely making it back to the known galaxy. We'll see who else does, but yeah, this entire episode, I just thought Lars Mikkelsen's performance was so good. Like, he is justified time and time again in this role. And also, you brought up Johnny brought up the Anakin side of things, or Thrawn dealing with Skywalkers. If you're on the fence about audiobooks, not the novel, the audiobook, please, for the love of God, go listen to Thrawn Alliances. Even if you don't touch the other 5 books, this show alone should make you want to go and listen to the performance. Mark Thompson, who Johnny and I have had the luxury of speaking to a couple of times. I think, Randy, you had didn't you mention something about Mark Thompson, and you were a fan of his work or something along those lines?
Because I had a lot of the Legends books he did the voices for, especially like any of the Jedi stuff, especially with Jason and Jaina, and yeah, all the Legacy of the Force series is amazing.
I just strongly recommend everybody to go check out Thrawn Alliances. It's like, I'm just pulling up the time here. It's not no 5 or 6 hour listen. It's got some
12 to 13. That's usually about the average.
It's got some substance to it here as I pull it up. Yeah, I think it's about 13 or 14 hours long. So, and in that novel, you get Thrawn's experiences with Anakin and Thrawn's experiences with Vader. Half the book is set during the Clone Wars, and the other half of the book is set basically pretty close to right before the time where Ezra makes the jump to where we are now. So it's just it's a must read if you're really digging the story that's happening on screen right now. But yeah, I don't know if I could have asked for any more from Thrawn in this episode. Like Johnny mentioned that like it felt like Timothy Zahn was writing it. I don't know if he was specifically writing it, but it's worth reminding people that Timothy Zahn is an official consultant on this episode, not just because they're using characters that he created. He legitimately consulted with Dave Filoni in terms of how to use Thrawn and how to deliver him. This is a guy that's written for the character in Legends and in canon, and there's changes between the two for sure. Like if you're a Thrawn fan, and for me, I've waited to see this character on screen for 2+ decades. I quite literally have no complaints about what we've gotten from Lars at this point. How about you guys?
None at all.
Yeah, none at all.
I mean, it's like everything I said. It felt performance. I said it last week that Mark Thompson is the bar because he voiced Jean, and Jean is Thrawn, so it stood to reason that it would be very difficult for anyone to sort of surpass that mantle. But after this episode, I don't know about that, because you got everything here. You've got, for me, basically, you've got Jean writing, you've got Lars's performance, audibly and and visually, that I'm all for it. Like, Lars has become the image of Thrawn in my head now. Like, I read a chapter from I think Air was the book I had, that I grabbed off my shelf and did some light reading earlier this week.
You got the reprints of those with the nice new pastel covers, right?
I
could have swore you did. They had
not the new ones. I have the last reprinting.
They all connect, right? If you have the three beside each other, they make one.
I don't think so. Those are the new ones.
Okay, I thought you did.
I have the ones that were they were either the last reprint of Legends or the first reprint under Disney. But I think we have an answer for that, though. Maybe. I'm referring to Zach's comment in the chat. Is the most recent comment in the chat.
Oh, well, I think he's referring to something that we brought up on air last night. Is him too chunky though? Yeah, there's people.
We called that out last week too.
Yeah,
Randy and I did.
The dude is 60 fucking years old, people, and not to mention, hey, when you're hunched over, I'm hunched over right now. If you sit up like this, the way Thrawn has to present himself, yeah, he's the belly's going to show a bit. Look, it's about performance. I seen, for example, it's not the same thing, but I'm going to go to Talking Star Wars comment for a second. Just finished. But if they do a recast of younger characters like Han, look up Anthony Ingruber. He's a Harrison Ford impersonator.
Somebody clearly missed the entire build up to Solo.
Ingruber is a fantastic Harrison Ford impersonator. He also plays a young Harrison Ford in the movie. I think it's Age of Adeline.
Yes.
Is it? Yeah. So, and he was really good in it. And I thought his performance in that movie should have allowed him an opportunity to play the role. But you do not cast people simply because they look like someone else. It is literally the worst way to go about things. Obviously, there has to be some sort of you can't have, no offense, Johnny, you can't have me or you, recast as Tom Cruise in the next Mission Impossible movie.
I don't know. I think I could pull it off, but I can see why you might not think that.
It's not going to work for us. Yeah, there's just so much that people need to let go of. I will take great performances any day over, Thrawn having a little bit of a belly, or this person, or whoever they end up. If Balin does live, whoever they recast as him, I've literally seen. Well, it's got to be what's that guy's name now? Is it Gerard Butler? It might be Gerard Butler, who resembles Ray Stevenson.
I think it's Gerard Butler, but I don't see that anyway. But maybe. I don't know. The internet's weird.
It's one of those action people. It's just no, it's not how you do it. I want to, before we move on from Thrawn, I think this is a worthwhile point to address now, and we've had him for 2 episodes. Based on last night's discussion, he's talking about last night's that fandom show. He's less convinced that Thrawn is the big bad now. And last night's discussion, for those of you that didn't tune into the episode, was just basically laying out the evidence of the first 6 episodes at that point. Now there's 7 episodes to go off of, and obviously we have, we're going to get to Balin in a second, or in a little bit, but for me, I don't think they could paint the picture any more clear without totally giving it away that something bigger is happening here. Something even bigger than Thrawn is happening here. Do you guys get that vibe too? Because to me, it couldn't be any more clear.
I definitely think there's more at play here. I sort of have my own theories on what these pods are. And I think that they are much more important than we think. I don't think they're transferring data in those pods. I'll say that.
Oh no, I'm right there with you. I think they're bodies of ancient Night Sisters that they're going to try to get back to Dathomir to resurrect. I think that's what they're carrying. At least that's what I'm thinking. But no, definitely Thrawn's definitely not the big bad. There's not the way things have been going. There's just little things they've been sprinkling out through the entire series that just, as much of a threat as Thrawn is in general, we can't discount that. They're using that to hide the bigger picture. And I think whatever Balin is after is what's going to end up being the big bad, the big threat.
And to be clear, I'm not saying, hey, next week we're going to find out what this big threat is. I think you'll get more hints at it for sure. But this is a long game here. Like, if we're comparing this to the MCU, like, I'm not saying they're a lot alike either, but like, we're still in like the first or second inning here if you're comparing the beginning of the MCU to Endgame, from this point to wherever this is all leading. Like, we're really, really early days. I know it might not feel like it because how long it's taken to get to this point, because we don't have 3 live action movies coming out in theaters every single year, sometimes 4. But we're still really early in this. So I don't know when it'll come out to be, or when it'll come to be, and who or what it will be. I mean, we'll get into some theories here in a bit, but actually I guess we'll address that soon here. But for me, Thrawn could absolutely be presented as the big bad from the perspective of the New Republic and our protagonist, for sure. But as the viewer, and you're watching Balin and Shin's thing happen, it's very clear there's something more at play here. Johnny, give us some of your theories here before we move on.
Well, the one thing that did cross my mind that I almost immediately brushed off was that it contains Grisk. That, they're Grisk in containment. But I wrote that off on my own eventually because the Chiss are the enemies of the Grisk. They are, in one of the books, somebody explicitly, says to Thrawn, they're coming back, but you won't be there to fight them. Something, I can't remember who the character was. I think that was a line in one of the books. That, like, the Chiss are prepared for the Grisk's return, or preparing for the Grisk's return. And that was, I can't remember, is that still his motivation for joining the Empire in new canon?
Yeah.
Okay. I know it was in the Legends books, but I can't remember if it was in the new books. Well, not the Grisk, but, protecting the Chiss Empire. So
yeah, in the Legends books, it's the Vong that the Chiss are preparing.
The same thing, right? Because the Grisk are pretty much just a substitute of the Yuuzhan Vong.
In terms of their positioning, absolutely.
Yeah. So I thought that might be a possibility, but I thought, why would he bring back the destruction of his own people? Unless Thrawn is now against the Chiss, which doesn't make sense to the character, we know. Something drastic would have had to have happened to him in the interim that he's been on this planet that has changed him so dramatically that, he now stands with the Grisk instead of against, which I don't think makes sense, which led me...
Well, I never thought about that, but it actually can make sense because the Grisk have the ability to enslave a mind, any mind, and make them do basically what they want to do. I would hate to... Thrawn enslaved by the Grisk would be a real threat to the new
everything. Everything. So, that would be interesting, but I don't think that's what it is. So then I sort of went in the opposite direction. I think this is a skill that can, or weapons or something to fight the Grisk, something to deal with the inevitable threat of the Grisk. And it just, more and more I keep thinking that that's what it is, because that has always, been Thrawn's sort of, reasoning. His motives has always been to, continue the Chiss ascendancy, to carry on that legacy. And if he ends up in this galaxy and finds presumably that this is the galaxy of the Grisk at one time or another, learns of some ancient Night Sister, weapon or knowledge or something that would allow them to hold off the Grisk, I think that makes a lot more sense to me. That this is what that is, and that the Grisk are still the big bad. That the movie will be like, again, we keep making the Avengers analogy, but I think the Grisk are the Chitauri of this Avengers film. They are the big bads, and Thrawn is sort of playing that Loki role where he'll accidentally bring them, but he's still not entirely a bad guy. A Thrawn Loki comparison, I think, is a pretty good one because they both play for whichever side serves them the best.
Randy, any theories in terms of the direction this is heading? I know you said you believe there's definitely something more happening here.
I do. I feel like, obviously, with Thrawn having a deal with the Night Sisters wouldn't have helped unless Thrawn offered them something that they absolutely needed. And that's why I was like, when you look at the little hollow he had when he showed the cargo hold being almost completely full, those almost looked, I wouldn't say exactly, but when I saw that, I was like, they almost looked like they were like caskets almost in terms of the shape, which is why I was like, you know what if they are ancient, the remains of ancient Night Sisters, and of course, as we know, if you get them back to Dathomir, they can do the rituals that would bring souls back into those bodies to revive them, which would give Thrawn an army. I mean, a Night Sister army to combat something greater, which, you call him Yuuzhan Vong, call him Grisk. I mean, obviously with the new canon would be the Grisk, but it makes sense that and especially since we've also see how much the Night Sisters want to get out of this galaxy. They know something's coming. They can sense it. And obviously they've let Thrawn in on it as well, which is why he's like, well, we have the time on our side, and we're going to basically do what we need to do because this is just part of the plan. My concern is that what if, obviously the only thing I'm trying to figure out is Balin's role in all this, because there's something there. There's something that he's hinted at many times that is he the one that actually sets this all off, because he wants to eliminate this vicious cycle of whether it's war in general or the Jedi and the Sith combined, just the vicious cycle of them going around and around. It's something he's definitely the biggest chess piece in all of this.
We're gonna go out of order here a bit, and we'll do Balin next. But Ty mentions Thrawn's hair wig was much better this episode, and the framing / camera angles worked around any weight issues in this episode. We mentioned right off the top Geeta Patel, who did a very, very popular episode of House of the Dragon. It was very visual based, very character based in their interactions. The House of the Dragon episode, and we thought that there was a lot of that on display in this episode too. So like, she's now really kind of hit the ball out of the park in Westeros and in Star Wars as well. So I think that she probably deserves a lot of credit for that, because as you can see, same cinematographer in both episodes, but sometimes it's direction that counts, and very few people would know that better than Ty. So just wonderful job by her and what she did. That brings us to Balin, though. Speaking of if something more is going on, we get that, parting of ways almost between Balin and Shin, and he clearly has something else going on. To harken back to Game of Thrones again, he's kind of trying to break the wheel, if you will, and I think this is where you can allow your mind to really go out and explore some Star Wars lore and fantasize, at least for one more week, the various different possibilities that is lining up with Balin's character here. And I do believe that whatever ends up happening, he is going to be the key, more so than Thrawn, that allows this thing to happen. What do you guys think? Because every time Ray Stevenson's on screen, I know I said this a couple weeks ago. I know you guys echoed it last week a bit, but like, he's just incredible. He just commands your attention while he's on screen. The character's interesting. He's intriguing, and like, it could be so many different things. I don't want to name them just yet. I want you guys to have your say, but Randy, I'm gonna go back to you on this one. You're playing Jedi Survivor. No Jedi Survivor spoilers in the chat, please. And it's a game that's full of lore, and Balin's character is set up basically for lore exploration at this point. What do you think's going on here? Because I think it's something very pivotal, pardon me, to where we're going with the story.
Well, definitely with whatever his plan is, it's going to probably change the way we view Star Wars. Whatever he's doing, it's strange because it's like you could just looking at him, you can tell he's conflicted about a lot of different things. Like especially with the duel with Ahsoka, you could tell that there's that part of him that wanted to continue after her, but then it's like that call. That the call from the Force is telling him to go and complete what he wants to complete. You could see just the turmoil in his eyes of what he wanted to do. I mean, it obviously parting ways with Shin didn't sit well with him, but he knew it had to be done because it was the only way he would be able to complete what he's set out to do. Whether that's locate, an ancient weapon or locate the Grisk, or I mean, even I thought about, because of all the parallels they've thrown out there, finding, searching out for the Mortis gods, or even considering the fact that maybe he's trying to bring about an apocalypse of some sorts, considering, him and Shin's names basically are, the wolves that help bring about Ragnarok in Norse mythology. Like that's what their names are based around. So it's really interesting to think about that he's probably trying to almost bring on a Ragnarok-like event to the Star Wars galaxy. Just a way to break the cycle and break the chain and start over, because he truly believes, to create, you need to destroy.
I think that so much of the fandom gets caught up in, oh, well, the sequel trilogy said it was 29 years of peace or whatever. And it's like, it was one passing line in a space crawl, people. That's not how Hollywood works. If there's money to be made, they'll go make money. If you've ever seen Smallville, guess what? Lex Luthor, spoiler alert, figures out who Clark Kent is. But by the end of it, there's a way for him to not know who Clark Kent is. And all that stuff is on the table when you're dealing with lore and Force things and the world between worlds. And like, don't limit yourself to the possibilities here, because the possibilities are endless despite there being stories that happen after this. There just needs to be a way to undo it. And I know some people might think that that's cheaping out, but guess what? That's how Hollywood works. They're gonna go and make the most creative story they can that can put butts in the seats. And I can't help but wonder, Ty's comment here, before we get Johnny's some theories from Johnny. He said, search for the first Jedi. That's what Balin's looking for. I'll say this. If it is that, I can now see a possibility or a route where you take the 3 officially announced movies. Rey which is 15 years after the sequel trilogy, which whatever this threat is may not show up till even then. I know that seems asinine, but it's a possibility. Stuff that happens during this show and the Filoni movie can play with those events. But if it is the First Jedi, that also goes to the James Mangold movie. So there might be a very loose way of tying all three of those movies in together, not in terms of it's a trilogy, but hey, they all fit and it's all one connecting story spaced out across 25,000 years. So I sit there and go, wow, that would be a very unique way to connect them all. I don't think it's the First Jedi, but I certainly wouldn't rule it out at this point. Johnny, what's going on with Balin? Zach said
Fuck if I know. I genuinely have no idea what he's doing at this point. I have said it, and I'll say it again. This is the performance of a lifetime. By someone who will never see his flowers. This, to me, is it's not a comparison I make lightly. This is the closest we'll get to someone accomplishing the feats that Heath Ledger did in The Joker, as far as performance and effect on them and their career and their place. This performance is so. I genuinely, I love it. Like you said, he has that gravitas that every time you see him, that's it. He just consumes the screen. And the story is just so good. Every time it's one of those great things. Every time I think I have the answers, he changes the questions. And I love it. Because every time I have an idea of what might be going on or have a theory that, oh, maybe this is where it's going, it just immediately pulls the rug out from underneath my feet. And I love it because I love that riding on the edge of my seat experience that I'm getting with this character. I genuinely have no idea what's going on. I genuinely have no idea if he's a good guy or a bad guy or somewhere in the middle. I genuinely am just at a loss for what's like. It's the worst part for me that if this story carries on past next week's episode, I know that no one is going to be able to step in, and it's not going to be as good. Like, yes, we'd see the story play out, but it's not going to be as good a performance because this is like it. If Ray Stevenson does not win an Emmy, something is wrong with the world. Like, I know they don't like to give, Star Wars performances and superhero performances. I know they don't like to give them, award recognition and stuff like that. But genuinely, I believe that is the best performance we'll see all year from an actor. Genuinely, it is that good a performance for me that he needs to win an Emmy. And quite frankly, he should win an Oscar. But this isn't a movie. But it just... I don't know where the character's going. I still, in the back of my mind, think that he is a good guy. That he is not, he's not bringing about the end of what we think. Like, I genuinely think I'm saying genuinely an awful lot in the course of this segment. I honestly think that his motives are good. Like, his motives are pure, but he is forced. He's Qui-Gon Jinn. His motives are pure, but he's willing to color outside the lines to paint the picture, which is very Qui-Gon Jinn. So I truly do believe that what he is striving to achieve is for the betterment of the galaxy. I just have no idea what the hell that is.
The possibilities are
endless.
Yeah, I mean, genuinely, like the Zepho, the Grisk. Randy mentioned Mortis earlier. ancient beings of any sort, really. There's so many different possibilities that this could be. I really don't know what it is, but I just want to point out one thing. If anybody here has followed the leaks, and they come from essentially three places, are far more accurate than anyone else, and that's Making Star Wars, it's Bespin Bulletin, and it's Jeff Snyder. Those three have it, and I'm telling you, all three of those guys heading into this series were pretty convinced that Thrawn was the big bad, and there wasn't more to it. That's the gist that they put out there. And I'm not trying to put words in their mouth, but I watch a lot of their content and listen to it, and that's exactly the impression that they've given. So, and yet, as this series plays out, it's very clear something bigger is happening, and this is one of those series where it's almost paying off if you've read the novels or if you've seen the Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels. I think that whatever it is that they're doing, for once, they have found a way to keep under wraps, and I think that that's awesome.
Yeah, thank God.
Right? Like, we're all sitting here like Grisk, Zepho, Mortis, Ancient Sith Lord, First Jedi. Who fucking maybe it's as simple as he finds a gateway to the world between worlds. And maybe when he walks in, Anakin's there to greet him. Who knows? That's probably a fight he doesn't want to have.
What if he's searching for a way to eliminate the Force altogether? To bring everything, basically put everyone on equal footing. To eliminate that vicious cycle.
Well, that would lead me back to the Vong again. And Zach and I had a discussion on air last night about the Vong. As awesome as it would be to see them bring Yuuzhan Vong in, because remember, they cannot be affected by the Force. As I've gone back and listened to the unabridged audiobook of Vector Prime, like that book by R.A. Salvatore is so fucking dark that like I'm sitting there listening to it like, holy shit, this is like a Star Wars horror movie. Like, I can't see Disney ever greenlighting us watching a Jedi get tortured and then eaten, and then like it's pretty fucked up shit. If you haven't like, it's great. Don't get me wrong. Like, it paved the way for Legacy of the Force, Fate of the Jedi. I just don't see Disney ever signing off on things like that. And yet, the idea, maybe you get a toned down version of it. If let's throw the Vong on the board now. Thanks, Randy. Like, who the fuck knows where this is going at this point?
I mean, how much would you fanboy out if all of a sudden he found a way to bring Revan into the current timeline?
What if Balin gets possessed? Wouldn't be the first time we've seen a current Force user get possessed by someone else. And I know that's, some people be like, well, that's a cheap way of doing it, but like, there's
Night Sisters have made it possible,
right? Like, the possibilities are literally endless. It's kind of cool. Like, it's nice to not be painted into the corner of, oh, well, we know this is going to happen. Like, you can't tell me that when you were going to see The Rise of Skywalker, you didn't know that the good guys were going to win. Like, the good guys were going to win. It's just the way that those stories were shaping out. Really, the bad guys almost never win in that trilogy. And I like that there's just so many different pathways that could take. And it actually makes me go, are they even set in which path they're going? Or have they laid out so many different possibilities that they're still deciding?
I love the fact that there's so many seeds planted right now that we can go in so many different directions. And I think that people need to remember out there that because we've got, even though the sequel trilogy is technically canon, we know that none of these characters are around by then. We know they all die.
I mean, do we though? I mean, let's be honest. Ahsoka clearly sets the template for, you don't have to be part of the saga to exist during the saga. Same with the entire Rebels crew. They exist in time and space. They're just not a part of the story. I love that they're expanding that galaxy in such a way that characters can exist during timelines and not play a part of the story and still be there. So their presence does not preclude their existence anymore.
But this is a way to, if they say they do, something happens to them in general, that some of these branching storylines they can go actually could lead to showing what happens to them.
Yes.
And with a big, huge war with another potentially ancient alien race on the board as a possibility, I mean, that's because we know by The Rise of Skywalker, Ahsoka is one with the Force because she spoke to Rey. So in her little vision at the end. So it's one of those things where you just have to think about, okay, how did we get there? And there's these little seeds being planted that we could potentially learn all about it, but that's the beauty of it. That what Filoni has created so far has us talking, has us asking questions, has us going, we have no clue what the hell's about to happen. For the first time in how many years, we absolutely have no clue where things are going.
I mean, I guess the only thing I'd say to that, again, is more the presence does not preclude existence. Is just because Ahsoka was one of those voices in Rey's head doesn't mean she was dead. Just means that she felt the call of the Force. You know, when Rey reached out to all of the Jedi, that doesn't mean it's all dead just because we assumed that at the time, which we did. We genuinely assumed that she was the last Jedi. That doesn't necessarily make it true.
I can agree with that.
I don't want to close doors on theories that could just as easily go the other way. Like, there are definitely some things that I'm confident in saying that's trash, stop saying it. Like, Baylan Skoll is Ben Kenobi's brother. That's trash, stop saying that. Like,
people are saying that?
I almost said genuinely again. That got me so hot. But
Do you know
seriously,
why they're saying
stop saying that. It's stupid.
They took a picture of Obi-Wan from Kenobi and the way his beard's bushy, and they put it beside Baylan. They're like, "Oh my god, it must be their."
Oh, come on, man!
Got it. Got it. I figured it out. I'm gonna solve everybody's problems right now. The truth about where this is heading. Spoiler alert.
Qui-Gon was Ben's father because they both had beards.
Could you imagine? Like, I'd be done. I'd be like, fuck this. I'm out. Oh, man. I'm going to use that.
So I saw somebody bring that up in chat, and I was just like, stop that. Stop that.
Oh, man. Oh, that was good. No, the possibilities are really endless. Also, like, is Ahsoka a Jedi? Like,
yes.
I'm still on the fence about that, you know? She never officially became one, and I still think that despite her having that, you know, pardon the term, but come to Jesus moment with Anakin in the World Between Worlds, it doesn't change the fact that the Jedi Council didn't just treat Ahsoka like piss; they treated Anakin like piss too.
But does that mean Luke's not a Jedi? You know, does that mean
maybe
Rey's
not
a
that
Jedi?
deep.
You know, it just, I don't. The council is the council, but at this point, the council no longer exists. It means nothing. You are a Jedi if you think you're a Jedi, if you believe the Jedi way, or whatever. You know, if you are a force for good, you are a Jedi. I think so. I think absolutely. I think Ahsoka is a Jedi. She's just not a Jedi Master, because that's a title. But she is a Jedi. No doubt in my mind that she is a Jedi.
I just like that the possibilities are endless. I really think that I do question if they even know exactly which way they are heading.
We'll probably be able to do hour-long shows until the film comes out, doing nothing but theories about this stuff, and still be completely wrong by the time it all comes out.
But this is why Dave Filoni gets it.
Mm-hmm.
You want speculation.
Yeah, just remember, he was handpicked by George Lucas. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
No, for sure. For sure. Like the worst thing Ryan Johnson did, not to beat on The Last Jedi here, because I honestly think it's a better film than The Rise of Skywalker, but when he came out with the whole, and I think it was Steel Wars that did it first or something, your Snoke theory sucks. It's the worst fucking thing that you could have done to the fandom, because you want fans to generate speculation. You want fans to go, could it be this? Could it be that? And I know people are going to be like, well, he said your Merrick theory sucks. Well, there's a big fucking difference between your Merrick theory sucks and where the whole overall story of this universe is going.
In his defense, Snoke was essentially meaningless to the overall story arc at the end, so I guess the sentence made sense.
But was he? Because it turned out he was basically Palpatine's puppet.
Well,
a theory that was debunked before the movie even happened, and then it ended up being that. Thank you, J.J. Abrams. I think speculation is good. It's good for content creators. It's good for fans. Hey,
good for engagement.
Yes, it keeps interest in the brand going. Don't kill it. You want it to thrive. And when I see that, and I'm not saying that because Zach put the your skull theory sucks either. I was always going here tonight. The worst thing you can do is shoot yourself in the foot. And the one thing this franchise has done too many times is they've shot themselves in the foot. You want the speculation. You want people to get excited about, okay, are we going to get it in Ahsoka season 2 if there's a season 2, or with the Filoni movie, what's it all going to mean? Where is it heading? You want as many open doors as possible because it keeps people intrigued.
It's the difference between you'll never guess and your theory sucks. Like Filoni is sort of playing, you'll never guess what Balin's up to. And we love that because genuinely, there it is again. Why is that word stuck in my head tonight?
Genuinely.
This is, I don't know why. Like, it's not a word I use in everyday life all the time, but tonight it just won't stop coming out.
Genuinely, somehow Palpatine returned.
But that's the difference, right? Like, saying you'll never guess what Balin is doing is so much different than saying, yeah, your Balin theory sucks. Because one is keep trying to figure it out, and the other is just stop, it's stupid. And you don't want just stop, it's stupid, unless the theory is so asinine that you need to say, you're being stupid, stop saying that, like Balin is a Kenobi. You're stupid, stop saying that. Of course, next week we're going to find out he is a Kenobi, and I'm going to look real stupid. But
we got some other things to get to here, and we probably only got about maybe 15, 20 minutes left to do it. We haven't even talked about Ezra in this episode, and I have to say, I fucking love what they did with him. It felt like he was pulled right out of Star Wars Rebels and put into this show. And like Sabine's trying to give him the lightsaber. It's like, no, I give it to you. Take it.
Yeah.
No, I'm good. I loved the exchange. It brought a smile to my face. And I guess the overall point here is Ezra's a bit of a badass.
Yes, he is. Like, going into this, you sort of had to wonder, like, he's been outside of, training in the Force for a very long time at this point. Far less time since we last saw him to how long, Luke had cut himself off on Ahch-To, which is such a drastic difference in that you can clearly tell that Ezra has spent this time training in other ways. Like, again, this is just me, but he is the most successful and talented Force user in Star Wars that we've seen since Yoda. And it just like, it's Yoda and then it's Ezra, because he's out here battling fully armed people using nothing but his bare hands and the Force.
Okay, just so I got this right, you said, and I quote,
yes,
he's the most, at least the way he came across in this
as combat, as far as combat skills go,
the most talented Force user since Yoda. And since this man is not here to represent himself tonight, I'm going to just take this moment to represent him on his behalf. I don't know if we go that far, but it's an interesting take.
As far as combat skills in the Force, I think he is the most adept at using them outside of Yoda.
I'll say this: the fact that Shin tried to decapitate him from behind and got some of his hair, but
I was very much expecting him to say something like, "Thanks, I needed a haircut."
He kind of owns her without a weapon. Like, that's something. Randy, what were your thoughts on Ezra in this episode and his combat? He's definitely a few notches up from where we left.
I mean, the overall characterization of Ezra in this episode, warmed my heart. Like you said, it took me back to Rebels with the way the banter and just the cadence, the way he spoke, his mannerisms, it was all there. It was great. The fact that I wasn't expecting him to just be absolutely amazing at hand-to-hand combat. That really kind of caught me off guard, but I loved it. I love the fact that even though he's been essentially in his own exile, he's continued to train and trust in the Force. And he even said that he's like, I don't need the lightsaber. I have the Force. Basically I'm good. And he showed that his trust in the Force, because obviously he's had the trust in the Force all those years running from Thrawn, hiding from Thrawn, that it's really been his ally the entire time. And he's completely put his 100% full trust into it. And it showed with just how well he fought off armed stormtroopers and just pretty much owned Shin, who's technically a Padawan, where I think he was close enough to being a Jedi Knight before the end of Rebels, before everything happened. I think that was kind of, even though it was never said, because, obviously we saw in Rebels, Kanan got knighted, but I think by the time the end of Rebels came around to now, he was close enough to being a Jedi Knight, if anything. So, but yeah, that was just absolutely amazing. I'm just glad that he got a lot of screen time, had a lot of dialogue, and got to just show that he hasn't been sitting on his ass for his entire exile.
Yeah, I thought it was just remarkable. The banter between him and Sabine was just awesome. And I mean, hey, to go up against another Force user without a lightsaber and come out on top, rather handedly, might I add, is something else altogether. I do want to touch on one other thing here. This episode for me felt basically like we were watching a Star Wars movie. I mean, I know it was only like 38 minutes in runtime, but like it felt cinematic. Like, I don't think you can point to the space sequences that we got, or the fight sequences that we got, or the cinematography, and compare it to anything else we've gotten in Star Wars TV. I think Andor to an extent, but even Andor didn't do a whole lot in space. There's a few things, but not much. It just feels like Dave Filoni has, not that Star Wars was on life support, but like has injected an incredible amount of positivity and potential into this, IP again. Thoughts, fellas?
He's setting the bar real high right now for anybody to follow him. So, and that's a good thing. We need someone to be like, hey, this is the standard we need to have. This is where you need to be. This is the only way things are going to move forward in a way that is going to be enjoyable for the fans, but also for anybody who wants to tell a really good story. We need to have this type of cinematography, this type of just level of commitment and detail and just story. That's what we need. That's what we've always wanted as Star Wars fans. That's all we've ever cared about, is the fact of getting the passion, the love of Star Wars itself, and having someone come in and actually set that bar high enough that it's like, this is what we need to do. And when we got the first movie, we got Force Awakens, we thought maybe, okay, this is good. I'm happy. I'm back into it. And then obviously after what Rian Johnson did, not that, like I said, not that Last Jedi was a bad movie, but it tore a lot of stuff down to the point of where J.J. Abrams was left scrambling, trying to put everything back together to what he thought his original vision was going to be. And we got, The Rise of Skywalker. But now we have Dave Filoni, who's come and going, this is where Star Wars needs to be. This is the level of excellence we need Star Wars to be. And I just hope people kind of try to follow and mimic that.
I seen Zach's comment here. Where did it go? There we go. A Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack. Yeah, I mean, I also like where Luke's about to walk into the cave and Yoda says, "Yeah, you won't need those." And Ezra didn't need the lightsaber to do what he needed to do in this, and probably harkens back to Jedi of the past long ago. Update on Zach's NCAA 2014 game. He got 52-16, 1-0 in conference play. Wow, that's incredible. General Grievous says, I love seeing Anakin's tape, to be honest. More Anakin is always appreciated. Eric says Star Wars sucks. Well, you're watching the wrong stream then, my friend.
I don't know if he's still watching since I timed him out.
No, I mean, I don't. We'll take the comment, but whatever. Yeah, so I just thought it was really cinematic, and he has really set the bar high. Like, Randy, you were right. Like, I don't know if even I had this level of expectation out of this series, and I think it's why my jaw is constantly hitting the floor going, holy crap, fucking yes. This is just incredible. Johnny, your thoughts on the just the cinematic feel to really the whole series, but specifically this episode and everything we got in space, and maybe touch a little bit on David Tennant's performance in not just this episode, but the series, because like it's easy to say, well, he's just doing a voice, but like he has brought this character to life in a way that none of the other droid characters have. Not K2, not L3. And I think part of it's we get to spend more time with him, right? Like we've already spent 7 episodes. But just your thoughts on those 2 points.
I mean, I think, as far as like the skill quotient that Dave Filoni has shown, it's been phenomenal. Like, you said that this was cinematic. It absolutely was. It has captured everything that makes cinematic good. In Star Wars, space looks like space. The combat looks good. Space combat looks good. Everything looks good. The story they're telling is cohesive and it is flowing in a way that a story should flow. All roads lead to Rome, and in this story, all story points lead to the conclusion. It has been phenomenal. Add to that essentially career performances. A career performance with Baylan Skoll, and you're getting everything you want as a creative voice from the series. Filoni, I said that, I can't remember if it was episode 1 or 2. It's very early in the series. We were talking about Filoni's ability to bring his vision out in live action, and he's shown it in the episodes he's directed, and he's showing it on a writing scale that he can write live action. Any sort of qualms I had about him getting his own live action film are now gone. I am fully in the just let him cook, like just let him go. Like people keep saying, oh, well, we need Favreau. No, we don't. We've got Filoni. Let that man cook. because he has an unmatched passion for Star Wars that is just it's amazing just how much he legitimately, stop myself from saying genuinely there, enjoys Star Wars as a fan and as a creator, and he has brought nothing but success. Clone Wars was sort of chopped out from under him originally with the buyout and everything happening when it did. And then, he got his second kick at the can with the final season. And Rebels, of course, knocked that ball out of the park. And now he's been a part of the creative team for, the Disney Plus stuff since day one. He's been working with Favreau. And, so much can't be stated. Like, it is uncanny to me that Favreau has essentially kickstarted in live action arguably two of the most successful things in the 20th century. He kickstarted the MCU with Feige, and he has relit the torch on Star Wars that had been let dwindle and, stutter and flutter on the Disney era with The Mandalorian. So I firmly am in the camp of, we don't need Favreau. We have Filoni. Let him be the guy in Star Wars. Let him be our Feige.
Thank you. That was literally my next point. Like, at least from a creative standpoint, I'm not saying Dave Filoni needs to write every movie or direct every movie, but before something gets stamped out, it should feel and look like Star Wars. And it doesn't all have to look the same either. Star Wars has different feels, different looks. Dave Filoni needs to be that guy. He's proven it time and time again. He's your basically conduit to George Lucas. The reason we're all here still watching this product. I cannot say enough good things about Dave Filoni and what he's managed to do. I cannot wait till next week, though, when we replay this clip of Johnny praising Filoni after this happens.
I mean, let's be honest. If anyone can pull that off, it's him.
No.
Like, I honestly, I think that he could pull it off, but it would have been something that had been built to for a very long time. It wouldn't just be a third act of a trilogy and somehow Palpatine returned. Like, excuse me, what? Pardon? Huh?
The one thing,
what?
The one thing I can say confidently is it's not Palpatine, simply because...
No, it's not. It's also not Drew Sabayoth.
Yeah, it could be See, to me, Balin could end up being the stand-in for that character. I think there's potential for that for sure.
No, I can't, because now I'm seeing him as like a Kenobi clone, and he's not Kenobi's brother, he's a Kenobi clone, and he's Balin's skull, not Ben Kenobi. Stop that. If this comes to pass, A, I'm taking a cookie for getting it on a whim, and B, I'm blaming you for putting it in the universe. Although, it has worked. So, point Filoni if that comes to pass. But... if we just shockmastered our way into figuring out Balin's skull, I want all the cookies, man.
In the 6th Thrawn canon novels, they make it pretty clear that Palpatine knows something else is way out there, and it's one of the reasons why he wants Thrawn's help. It's not just for the current stuff, it's for what could come, and he knows that Thrawn could be a conduit to the Chiss, which could aid the Empire in whatever this unknown threat is. And obviously Palpatine never officially lives to see it, and I don't know if maybe that's where they go with Thrawn as well. We'll have to wait and see. As we get ready to wrap up here, guys, final thoughts. Randy, I'm going to go to you first. Anything you want to address, man? The floor is yours.
I'm just, like I said, it's like, I don't know where we're going, and I'm okay with that. I have no qualms and no issues with that whatsoever, and I'm really excited and saddened that next week is the season finale, and it's been a hell of a journey, and it's one that I really wish didn't have to end. But It's unfortunate that it does. And whatever happens, I just have this really bad feeling that the way the episode ended tonight, things are about to go in a really bad direction next week. And I hate to even put that out there, but I have a feeling things are not going to end on a happy note next week.
Before we move to Johnny, give me a prediction. What happens next week? And none of us are aware of the spoilers for next week either, so they're just predictions.
I think that, other than the fact that I think we're going to get to see the reemergence of Thrawn in our galaxy far, far away that we've grown up to love, but I think that I think we may lose a character or two. I don't know who, but there's just that feeling that something bad is going to happen, and it's just not going to be all wine and roses like it was the end of this week.
Johnny, final thoughts and a prediction.
Well, before we get into final thoughts, I mentioned off the top I had some gripes. We never really got to that. And there's one gripe that comes to mind, and we sort of danced around it a little bit when we talk about Ezra and Sabine. And that's where my gripe comes from. It is a specific lack of acknowledging Jason's existence. When they sort of come back to them and they do that sequence where he runs through, wow, Hera's a general in charge of a fleet, and we learn what oh god, what
that Zeb is training.
Thank you. I don't know why Zeb's name slipped my mind there, but we know Zeb's training cadets. Like, at no point is the thought of, I can't believe that Kanan has a son. You know, like, hello, excuse me, this is important, and you should be acknowledging this. And if Sabine didn't mention that to him, shame on her. If this is just one of the rare Filoni oversights, which I think is probably what it is, then Dave, come on now. That's a pretty big one. How'd you miss that? But that's my gripe, is that he was not mentioned in that moment. You know, like, that should have been significant, you know, both as an acknowledgement of the relationship with Hera and Kanan, but the fact that that is still his master's son, you know, like, that's significant, you know? So that's my gripe, that they did not mention Jason in that sequence. Final thoughts. I loved it. I'm excited for where we're going because I have no idea where we're going. And that is not something I can say about very many things. You know, either through spoilers, which both I have avoided, and they have done a much better job keeping tighter under wraps. You know, you can't stumble into spoilers this time around, whereas like with the sequel trilogy, you could. You know, there were many things that were accidentally spoiled by, you know, lackluster, you know, keeping things under wraps. Obviously, that's more as much sort of a testament to the times where things are harder to get at from the outside world. But, you know, they have generally done a much better job keeping things under wraps. Even the things that we know, they're doing a much better job keeping under wraps as far as what they are related to the series. Like, we knew Anakin was in it, but we didn't know how, and they played it that way. So I've loved it. Every step of this trip has been an enjoyable one, which is not something I can say for very many other things. You know, even Disney, as far as Disney Plus series go, you know, the Marvel series have continued to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, in my opinion. And I'm legitimately terrified for Loki starting back next week because, you know, things have gotten so bad on that side of the fence that I am scared of what's going to happen there. But I think that's a series that can turn the ship around and make it good again. But that's an issue for another day. I've enjoyed every step of this road. I am saddened that it's going to end next week. I would like this series to continue on. I would like a more firm knowledge of, yes, there will be another season. Yes, it will be in, you know, at this point, probably 2025. Or maybe if we get really, really lucky, late 2024, if we're really, really lucky, but I doubt that because of, everything that's going on with the writer strike and, the SAG strike and all of those things. We still have to end those. I mean, writers are now cleared to return to work, so that's a plus. But, SAG still has to come to its conclusion. So we're not over this yet. So
pre-production can presume, basically.
Well, writers have been cleared to return to work by the guild. They can return to working on projects.
That's what I'm saying. Pre-production on a season 2 if they're going that way.
Yeah, the writing can start again, depending on how far into that process Dave already got. Which, knowing Dave, he could very well be done. But so it just there's so much to look forward to. I would like more firm answers in where they'll go, what's next, when's it coming, what's happening. I would like those answers, but I love that I have no idea where we're going because I love the ride. I love not knowing. I'm happy not knowing where we're going. This is the first time where we've ever had sort of this experience of we don't know where the stories are going. The sequel or the prequel trilogy, we knew where things were going to end up. The sequel trilogy it was our first opportunity to get that again, but they were so half-cocked that even things we knew to be factual were proven wrong by the end because some writer decided to change everything in between.
I think you nailed it. I think the journey is so important that us as fans at times forget to enjoy the journey to the destination, and then we get to the destination and the journey's over, and you want to enjoy that ride there. So my predictions are vague. They're just going to be vague because it's just who knows, right? I think that it'll be left in a WTF moment at the end where we desperately want more and we're going to be waiting. And I don't believe for a second everybody's coming home. I don't know if that means death or stranded or whatever, but I do not think everybody's coming home.
My predictions are even simpler. Questions will be answered. New questions will be asked.
Oh, wow. You went on a limb on that one.
I did. I'm really sticking my thumb out there.
Big thanks to Johnny and Randy.
We're doing ratings?
Oh, right. The rating system.
God, I can't believe
I was about to say, you actually could have gotten away for that for a week. And
more the scale than the actual rating that I have the issue with.
All right, so I didn't get to give my rating last week. I'm going to give it now. My rating for last week's episode is a 4. And that's 4 lightsabers, by the way. And my rating for this week's episode is 4.5. Back to a 4.5. I actually like this week's episode better than last week's episode, and I didn't think that was going to be possible. So 4.5 for me. Randy?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the 4.5 as well. I felt like the interactions were amazing. The cinematography when it comes to the space battles, when it came to the duel between Balin and Ahsoka, just in the overall fight choreography with Ezra and Sabine. I mean, I thought all that was just so well done. You got your little Filoni comedic moments here and there with the Noti, they're fun. They're a fun creation by Filoni. I really do enjoy them. But yeah, it's a 4.5.
Johnny?
I mean, I'll round it out and say it's a 4.5 because the scale sucks. I would definitely like to go higher than a 4.5, but I can't because we're limited on this scale, and it's not a 5, but it's closer to a 5 than I think maybe any other episode. I'll have to rewatch again to decide sort of whether this is better than 5 or not. But if not, it's very close, and it's sort of a 1A, 1B thing. So if this isn't the best episode or my favorite episode, once the recency bias wears off, it'll be very close to it, I think. So 4.5 with a bullet or a blaster.
There you have it. 4.5 across the boards. If you haven't yet, please take a moment. Like the stream, comment down below, share your thoughts, positive, negative, neutral. We would love to hear from you in the chat. Subscribe, slash that notification bell before you get left in a galaxy far, far away.
From a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, that too. And we'll be back. I'll be back tomorrow with that fandom show. But we'll be back next week reviewing the 8th and final episode of Star Wars Ahsoka. Just insane. 7 weeks have come and gone. May the Force be with you guys. Have a great night. Thanks, Johnny. Thanks, Randy. See you next week.